Hi, this is Pastor Lou, and I do hope you're well. Why is it when we're going through a tough time, many of us ask two questions that don't do us a whole lot of good? The first one is, why me? Which is really another way of saying, why isn't this happening to someone else? And the other question is, who can I blame? Whose fault is this? But it's hard to get healing out of either one of those questions. Now, I don't want to play down the hardships that anybody is having right now, and I certainly don't want to play down the fact that some people are suffering from the pandemic worse than others, but the pandemic does affect all of us. And so the pointlessness of these two questions really is highlighted. Why me? Well, it is everyone else too. And whose fault? Well, can't really pin the blame on anybody for that either. I want to share with you a passage of scripture that is particularly relevant today. 1 Peter 1 or 2, 19 and 20 in the English Standard Version says, "For this is a gracious thing when, mindful of God, one endures sorrows while suffering unjustly. For what credit is it if, when you sin and are beaten for it, you endure? But if when you do good and suffer for it, you endure, this is a gracious thing in the sight of God." There are a few insights I want to share about that point us beyond these pointless questions into a more healthy, healing attitude. The first is that the writer points out the awareness of our knowledge of God is a shared thing. The phrase used in this passage, mindful of God, is really something that no translation I'm aware of really captures in the right way. It's really talking about a commonness of the knowledge of God that we have. It's a common knowledge. The point is that we're really all in this thing together, but our common plight, our common suffering and misery is not something that defines us, but rather we can begin to build a healthy life with our shared fellowship with the knowledge of the presence of God. The second point that I want to point out that leads us into a more healthy, healing attitude is the recognition that we can own our attitude. This passage is kind of awkward, and some people think that it really is advocating consent to abuse. You know, we're going through something bad and we're supposed to bear it patiently. And some people take that as a way to condone somebody abusing us or mistreating us. But that's not the point at all here. What really it's speaking to is the attitude available to us whenever we're suffering, and it's not suffering from something that we did. We didn't do anything to cause this pandemic necessarily. Nobody really did. But it's something we're going through. So let's own our attitude about it and make sure that it's one that connects to God. The third point I want to make that really is leading us to a healthy, healing kind of attitude is that this shared knowledge of God is not just sharing the knowledge of the idea of God, but rather that we are sharing the idea of God's presence among us. And I've talked about this a number of times, but let's face it, at this time, nobody else can visit, right? But you can always invite God into your home and make God's presence the center of your experience.